Welcome to the Sellernomics podcast, sharing valuable tips and information in the Amazon and e-commerce space. Each week, we deliver the best interviews with some of the top Amazon personalities in the industry to help you grow your business. Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. And now, here is your host, Rob Stanley.
Hey, welcome everyone to the brand new Sellernomics podcast. I guess third time's a charm, right, Ryan?
That's what they say, right?
Yeah. So everybody, if you've been following, obviously this is my third and final podcast. Not final meaning like I'm only doing one episode, like my final podcast. So I actually am the owner of the Sellernomics podcast, which is obviously sponsored by GETIDA, which I appreciate very much. And being the new chief marketing officer over there at GETIDA is awesome, and I really appreciate all the team over there and everybody. So, but hey, we got a great one today, everyone, and we got some great ones coming up in the next couple months. But today, I got Ryan.cramer, Partnership and Marketing Manager for PingPong Payments. What's up, Ryan?
Rob, first off, I want to say congratulations on the new show. That's really cool that you get to brand this yourself and obviously partner with GETIDA. It's really cool. But yeah, I'm going to say third time. We've kind of started all these journeys together, which is kind of funny. And here we are yet again. So, but yeah, it's been great thanks for inviting me for the first show. It's been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have some great information. So just real quick, everybody, we are going to be talking about how to simplify your Amazon capital and sourcing. And Ryan always has great tips. And yes, it is kind of a trend. Every time I've started a podcast, after the first one, Ryan's been my first guest, and we didn't want to break that trend. So the cool part is, so just so you know, Ryan, this is going to be a funny one. So the last two podcasts that I've had to exit or leave, Yana from YLT Translations has always been my last person. And so guess what? She's going to be up Thursday. So everybody make sure you tune into that Thursday episode because Yana will come on, and I'm excited to have her on too. And of course, as you know, Ryan and I are actually both good friends with her also, and she's an amazing one. But
we need to break that trend. That's a trend we need to break.
So, that's the trend we need to break, right? Well, the good part is, like I said, I actually own the podcast. It's actually in the works being trademarked right now, Sellernomics. So that'll be really cool. And again, thank you to GETIDA for sponsoring the podcast. And Ryan, let's kick this off. Let's get things going here. So let's talk about like, how does a seller save time on both current invoices and paying invoices? And tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you're talking a little more like if you're selling international or when you're actually like sourcing products, right? From overseas.
Right.
Take it away.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Good question. So when PingPong, obviously I work with PingPong. And so thanks for PingPong, the logo. You can check it out right there, or I should say on this side. So PingPong, what they do, they've simplified the payment solutions in terms of paying suppliers, manufacturers, as well as any other sort of entity out there that you as a seller might be growing to. As we all know, as you're beginning your Amazon journey, you're going to be starting probably by yourself, if not a partner or a very small team. So time is always of the essence. And what I always preach on my show, but also to anyone who's I'm speaking with, is there's only so many different things you can do to have control over in the Amazon space. Fees are kind of set for you. Storage fees, FBA fees, fulfillment fees, even shipping costs, those kind of are set for you. You don't have control over that. But the things that you do have control over are your time and how you spend it. So that I would consider the most valuable asset that you can possibly use and what you're going to be using to grow your business. So we actually have built this really cool solution to take your time, no matter how big or small of a seller you might be or an enterprise level brand globally, you can save that time and really free up people's time to do other things like building your actual business. So let's go back to the beginner seller. If you're listening to this and you're saying, I just don't have time to even listen to a podcast. I need to figure out my product selection, finding a great supplier manufacturer. Let's say you did that. You're going to be having to figure out logistics and all these other things. How can I shorten the amount of time I spend on paying my manufacturer or supplier to get my goods back over to a fulfillment center or a 3P warehouse, whatever that might be? You can do that by using a third-party provider or using a partner or a person who's actually involved with Amazon's payment service provider network. So those are actually, we're one of those things. So what I mean by that is the traditional sense of paying a supplier, you're going to be getting an invoice, and then I'm going to have to spend anywhere from 7 to 9 minutes to pay that singular invoice. So that's time at my computer. I'm going to have to figure out either in person, making an international wire, which is time off your plate to do other things, or I'm going to be doing that via my virtual bank. So by doing that, you're actually taking your bank, you're putting in the information, sending it to an international bank account. There's all these other barriers that it's going through. Your money is getting actually, once you click pay, that's not where the payment stops. So it's going through all these different channels and third-party barriers. So that when it eventually gets to your supplier, it could be anywhere from, a week, 2 weeks, maybe even upwards of 3 weeks, depending on where they're located and what kind of banking situation they have on. So that's just to receive the funds and then getting that converted so that they can actually purchase goods, pay their employees. All that takes time and effort. So when we're looking at it, ultimately, you can be talking about a matter of weeks just by paying somebody with money to get it overseas, wherever your supplier might be, and then having it so that they can use it. That's time of your plate. And as we all know, logistics is kind of the headache in the Amazon world and e-commerce world of getting your goods quicker and faster. So this is one way to actually shorten that window, get your goods and money to your supplier quicker, and pay them out in actual local currency. So that's what I mean by actually saving efficiencies and time.
Yeah, no, that's great information, and we appreciate that, Ryan. And we got lots of great questions and a couple of quick shout outs. We had a person on Facebook hitting us up saying congratulations. I appreciate it. It's been a while in the making, and it took me some time to figure out the name, but thank you so much. And again, just real quick, I show a little more love. I appreciate any thumbs up or likes. If you're on YouTube, there's a thumbs up down in the bottom right corner. It's in red. I'd appreciate if you hit that and subscribe to our channel. We have both on GETIDA and the Sellernomics channel. So, and then Lisa, actually, great choice of your first guest. I agree. Ryan is my great first guest, and he has
Lisa.
been. So,
Lisa.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I appreciate
Lisa's always cool, and I appreciate her, tuning in there. So, let's keep moving on. So, yeah, everybody, once again, if you are interested in checking out GETIDA, go over to getida.com/Sellernomics. And there's a great discount there. We'll be talking about that a little bit later, but let's move on with Ryan. And we got lots more questions. So Ryan, sellers usually are struggling with like forecasting, and that could be a big issue. So what about like capital management and forecasting? Like, how do you guys help with that?
Yeah, good question. So with capital management, obviously, a lot of the times when I think about capital management, it's a big fancy word, but let's simplify it a little bit. Let's talk about knowing where your money is. A lot of the time, people don't know if they're paying or receiving funds. So this can be simply as if you're selling in the United States only and you're located in the United States, you want to know, is my money being tied up in inventory? If I'm paying out my employees, if I'm going to be paying out virtual assistants, or if my money is sent over to my manufacturer distributor. Those are just a very few basic entities where you can actually have money that's coming and going, but you don't know if actually, when people say checks in the mail, that's actually money not that you don't have in your actual account. It's actually sitting there, but it's not on your books as funds that you have sitting in your bank account. So by definition, if I'm paying a supplier $10,000 and I either wire them funds, that money is no longer mine. That money, even though it's not been received and those goods are not been technically quote unquote paid for yet, that's money off my books, and I have to account for that. So that actually affects you as anyone from your accountant. They have to know where your money is at all times, obviously, to account for any sort of audit or just any sort of growth capital, and just know where the flow of inventory or funds might be coming from. And this is also super important when you want to exit your business. When you're talking about exiting, they're going to look at your account books and say, how much money is tied up in inventory? How quickly are you getting your funds once you pay for those, and then getting them turned around and selling through your inventory? That actually affects your multiple when it terms of if you want to exit your biggest asset, and that's your brand on Amazon. So all that being said, simplifying it for us is paying for goods or inventory, or even people in terms of salary, or your assistants or virtual assistants. You can actually pay for them in local currency just with the help of a solution like PingPong. So how it works is you actually are applying for an international bank account, so you can pay up to 170 different currencies to over 117 countries, excuse me. And you can pay entities in those locales. For example, if I am paying my manufacturer in China, what I can do is with the funds that I have in my PingPong account, I can actually convert that over at a very low rate, better than what you would get at with any sort of bank or paying like through PayPal, for example, or any other direct to peer payment option. You're actually going to get a very low rate to convert that over to local currency, and it hits their account, whether it's a PingPong account, it's instantaneously almost, or if it's another bank account, if they don't have a PingPong account, they can receive it in anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. And that's in local currency. So that window I talked about in the beginning, it's anywhere from potentially weeks on end for get that money to get converted over. You're talking about a matter of days where they can start paying out for their goods. You instantly become your supplier's best friend because they don't have to wait on money being converted over. And here's the other fun fact that I love telling people too. Did you know that suppliers are actually baking in there's this thing that it's called a buffer, right? So when I get an invoice as a Amazon seller, I'm actually getting charged 4 to 5% more in my invoice because of the simple fact of currency conversion. So my supplier might say, oh yeah, pay it out in US dollars. That might be good and dandy. You might think nothing of it. But when I'm paying them out in that currency, they're actually charging me 4 to 5% more. Now, why is that, you might ask? That's a good question that I'm going to answer for myself.
Why is that, Ryan?
Why? Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Rob. See, I'm going to set myself up. You might think, why is that the case? Well, when money is just sitting there and it's kind of in limbo being converted over by a bank, again, all these different third-party banks, it actually takes so long that currency exchange, whatever that might be, it actually fluctuates every so often. It might be a few cents. It might be as drastic as, Brexit was announced and your valuation of your currency just completely bottoms out. If that were to happen and you're paying out US dollar and they're going to convert over, your supplier doesn't want to lose money. No one wants to lose money in a transaction. They want it to be instantaneous and they want it to be instant. In that fact that they know that they're going to receive the actual funds they need to make your goods and make a profit. So they're not going to hold the bag and lose money on the transaction. You, the seller, are going to. So it's all part of a working negotiation that if you pay out in local currency, they know they're going to get their money quicker. They know that you have the capability to work with an entity, and they know that you're serious in the fact that you want to save money and make time work for you and not against you in that fact.
Yeah, no, that's great information. And you know what, Ryan? I mean, I 2 points I heard you talk about that I'd like to touch on a little bit more. One of them, you were talking about invoices and how they pad the invoices. I'd like to give a couple actual examples of when I was selling on Amazon, or heck, not even just Amazon, when I was just selling online for the last 20 years of that happening. And then also you're talking about like being able to improve your multiplier when you're exiting. And that's a great point. And I'm going to tie that in a second, but we're going to stop for a quick break from our sponsor, GETIDA. Hang tight.
Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
Yeah, so be sure to head on over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics and get that $400 offer that they have. That's going to be obviously commission free or no fees. And that's good for an infinite amount of time whenever you get that $400. So be sure to head on over there to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. All right, let's talk about the invoices. So I've been selling online for like 20 years, and you are absolutely right, Ryan. There's been times that I would get these invoices and I would look and I'd start actually go online, look at what the rate exchange was. And I was just like, whoa, they're definitely padding this. Like, they weren't just padding it because of the currency exchange. They were also padding the shipping. And because I'd get on the phone with this was like quite a few years ago when some of the shippers were a bit cheaper, or I could get a hold of like UPS and find out what was my rate and things like that. And they were definitely padding it. And especially, I get the fact that, yeah, there's going to be some fees there. Like they're going to have to deal with some of it. But if you can get it to them in their local currency, there's a lot less fees they're having to deal with. They're not dealing with some of the wire fees, because wire fees sometimes are double-ended, if I'm not mistaken, right, Ryan? Sometimes you'll get hit like when you're sending it, and then they get hit when they're receiving it. So they have to pad that. And that's something that you guys are able to offset or help lower some of that cost on. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, the more entities or the gates you have to go through, think about it this way. That's why credit cards are so high in terms of fees. They have to pay out all these different entities that are, anytime money goes through another barrier, everyone gets a piece of the pie, right? So you're just taking that slice and you're divvying up in multiple different ways. But if you eliminate all those barriers, and what we do, we actually have just surpassed the entire system. Directly partnering with banks has been the number one best thing that our company could ever do. It's because the likes of, and I'd say to partner with banks, I'm talking about legitimate banks, not your local credit union down the road. I'm talking about like Citi, Chase, Wells Fargo, HSBC. Those banks, we have direct correlation partnerships. So when you actually sign up for an account online, you're actually going to be getting a Citi account or a Chase account, depending on where you're on the world, right? That's how we determine which one you get. But the fees are still the same no matter who we work with. But it makes your money getting from point A to point B get there so much quicker, instead of, hey, I have to go through all these check marks and checkpoints. That's what delays your money so long, is because, like technology, if it has to go through all these different gates, it's just going to be a lot slower. It's just how technology and the economy works. But when you kind of eliminate all the middle ground, which is kind of what e-commerce has always been, it's like eliminating the retailer entirely and just going from direct to consumer. This is kind of that way, but it benefits everyone in that regard. The only person you're hurting is maybe a financial institute, which we all know they're still getting paid. We're still, at some point they're all getting paid. They don't want to have to handle those small transactions, no matter if it's $1,000 or $100,000. Those are still small peanuts, and they're quite often. So to date, we've done about $90 billion in cross-border payments and those conversions.
Wow. That's a lot. Yeah. And so to touch on the other subject I was talking about earlier about the exit and, and helping your multiplier out when you're exiting. I mean, that's a big subject right now. There's quite a few, companies or aggregators out there that are looking to buy Amazon-based companies. GETIDA deals with a lot of them and partners a lot of them. And so does PingPong. And, so that's something I want to touch on, is the fact that, Ryan just gave some great examples of ways to increase your multiplier, and GETIDA is the same way. We help you find refunds, reimbursements that basically you are due, and that goes right to your bottom line. That's money that Amazon owes you. So, this is kind of great to have Ryan on, because there's a lot more kind of, things you could do together with PingPong and GETIDA to be able to try to increase your multiplier if you're looking at selling, or if, in worst case, you're putting money in your pocket, right, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about saving money, like, this is not money that you're fictitiously going to save, like a coupon or anything like that. This is actually your money. You're just not paying the fees. In terms of GETIDA, it's actually your money. Is Amazon owes it to you because of something on their end happened. So in this case, what PingPong saves money. So we talked about the supplier side in the beginning of the show, right? Now let's talk about the receiving side. So if I'm an international seller, or if I'm a seller located in the United States and I'm selling in Canada or in Australia or Germany, this is where you're seeing a lot of brands start to build on themselves throughout, just over the course of these last year, 2 years, or if you've been in the game long enough, you've been doing this for quite a while. But knowing that the opportunity exists internationally is a big opportunity for the likes of aggregators. That's where they're growing internationally and taking brands at scale in the United States and moving them internationally so that they can penetrate those markets. So why is it important to use PingPong for your receiving funds? Great question. That I asked. Again, what is this? I'm like interviewing myself.
Yeah, let me ask the question.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, I'm not those. But anyways, so internationally, if I'm receiving funds, Amazon is, say for example, I'm in the United States, I'm selling in Canada, right? My goods are getting sold in the Canadian dollar. They are being, we're asking someone to pay for that in that currency. It's listed in that regards. If Amazon is receiving those funds, obviously it applies to the seller account just like it is in the United States. But what you don't see is that every 2 weeks, it's the same pay schedule. You get paid out to your bank account, which you upload into your seller account instantaneously wherever you're selling internationally. So if I'm putting my US bank account, Amazon will pay me out in the US dollar. That's awesome in theory. What they're not telling you is that they will convert it over from the Canadian dollar that you should be receiving, and will convert it for you, but also charge a fee on top of that. And there's actually in the seller central account, when you look through international selling, you can actually see at which scale, no matter how much you're selling, how much in terms of currency conversion that fees that Amazon will charge you. Now, if you're a big enough brand, you might get a lucky break, and if you're selling $10 million in Canada, which not a lot of people are, but that's one marketplace that you're selling in, they're still charging you 1.5% fee just to convert your money over if you're selling $10 million. Now that actual fee kind of substantially goes up the less you are selling in an international market. Now, again, this is after Amazon takes away your FBA fees, your storage fees, no matter what other fees that Amazon's going to list out that you typically pay. This is one of the areas that they don't list it out. And you can actually real time go right now. If you're watching this, go into your Seller Central account. If you're selling in Canada, you can look and take out, after all the fees, how much Amazon should have paid you. And you take that money and you go into Google and you say, what was the currency conversion on this date from Canadian dollar to US dollar? Take the Canadian dollar amount, put it in there, and then you'll see in real time what you should have gotten at that rate. Now, a lot of the times that number will be much higher than what you actually receive in your bank account. Hence why Amazon charges those fees. They don't tell you about it. It's part of the terms and conditions and part of Amazon's, entity that they're facilitating these financial transactions and conversions over to the domestic funds of which you need and have asked and requested for. So the solution of that is, again, that's money left on the table. We're talking about saving money. That is money that anywhere from 2 to 4% we're talking about that you're just paying out in fees unnecessarily. So a solution like PingPong, you can actually have a receiving account. It's a digital bank account. You can open it up through us, can put it into your Canadian account and receive Canadian dollar. That's amazing because this is the cool trick. Instead of every 2 weeks that money has to convert over to the US dollar, you can let it sit there. You can let it say, if I'm selling only a couple $1,000s a month in Canadian dollar, I can let it sit there until I feel comfortable or I feel like the currency valuation or whatever the strength of the Canadian dollar versus the US dollar is. I can convert those funds over to US dollar whenever I want. I can just let it sit there instead of every 2 weeks it gets converted for me. So there's a couple benefits there. One, it's you're not paying fee for a conversion because no matter when you're converting money, that's a fee will be associated with that no matter which entity you use. But two, you can use those funds to either let them sit there and use it to pay out another entity in Canadian dollar if you so choose, or you just have, you wait until that accrues to the point when you need to either pay out manufacturer or supplier or just get paid out yourself. So that's the beauty of that. And you can actually receive up to 10 different currencies with our solution. So if down the road, I'm going to start selling in the UK, or I'm going to sell in Europe, or I'm going to sell in Australia. If you have a PingPong account, and this is where it's kind of simplifying the nature, I don't have to open multiple bank accounts. You can actually request to open up a Australian dollar account or a euro account or a British pound sterling account. And all in one dashboard, you can see I'm receiving this much from my UK business. I'm receiving this much from my Europe business. I'm receiving this much from my Australian business, all in one dashboard. And it instantly just alleviates a headache for your financial person. That might be your wife, that might be your husband if you're listening to this, or it might be your accountant. And you can actually take the money holistically just on Amazon alone, but we can actually apply that to your Shopify store. You can apply it to international marketplaces such as Wish or Rakuten if you're in Japan, or Mercado Libre or CD Discount if you're in France. So as your business scales appropriately scales, you can start to see in one simple way to see where all your money is coming and going, and not know that, the check's in the mail, I need to account for hundreds of thousands of dollars that might be missing or just floating in that ether out there. You can actually see simplistically in one place where that money is.
Yeah. No, that's great information. And man, I'm glad I'm on your show there, Ryan. No, just kidding. No, it's great information. And as you know, like Ryan and I are both host podcasts, so it's always fun when we got on other ones. I could literally just rattle on for like an hour, but I do have a few more questions for you and I want to get them answered because I know there's more information that people want to hear about. So before we take a real quick break from our sponsor, GETIDA, we will come back and I want to talk to Ryan a little bit more about where he thinks some of the other non-Amazon marketplaces are growing and where they could possibly help you with that. So stay tuned real quick.
Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
Yeah, so be sure to head on over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics, and I'll put it at the bottom of the screen here shortly. And we will have at the end Ryan's contact information, ways to get a hold of him. But Ryan, tell us, where do you feel, there's some basically market growth or opportunities available for Amazon sellers, but it's not Amazon?
Yeah, so good question. So in 2020, we saw a lot of people that if they weren't at scale on multiple marketplaces, or they were not diversified in their own systems and they're only selling on Amazon, we saw a lot of people get hurt by that. And what I mean by that is in the capacity that we're even seeing now play out to today, Amazon's no longer a storage facility, they're a fulfillment area. So you at scale as a brand need to figure out, if I want to build something into a global brand that's recognizable, and I want to actually be an entrepreneur and grow my brand, not just in one country, but internationally as well. A lot of people saw some hurt if their goods were not being able to be fulfilled and sold on Amazon because of the pandemic. Now, obviously that's hopefully a one in, generational occurrence that happened, but it shed light on a lot of different things. One, Amazon has ultimately, again, control over if you can sell online or not, right? It's their own marketplace. They have the capability. If something doesn't check out well with them, whether it's their TOS compliant or you're being a bagged actor, which I'm assuming a lot of people aren't, but something happens, and a lot of people go through this every day in and day out, that their listing or product listing can get suspended for a number of different reasons, for whether it's their fault or not. So that being said, if you're solely relying on Amazon, that's a really tough place to be at scale, right? Or a lot of brands are, and aggregators, we mentioned this earlier, they're looking to know that you're successful on Amazon because that's where a lot of eyeballs are, but they also want to know that you can exist outside of that realm as well, because Amazon, though being one of the top e-commerce sellers around the world, it's not the only place you can play. And that's because we might be short-sighted. We see that it happens a lot. We're might be a little jaded in terms of looking through rose-colored glasses and seeing it's only Amazon that exists all around the world. And they're the number one because that's holds true here in the United States. Well, that's not the case internationally, really. Even in Europe, which is the number 2 and 2A markets for international e-commerce growth, I'm talking Germany, and then I'm talking UK. They're 2A and 2B. They used to be the same, but obviously because of Brexit, they've moved on to their, lack of a better term, their own island, their own marketplace, if you will. So because growth has happened and you're starting to see more people adopting Amazon, I believe it's in over 20 marketplaces now. And now internationally, sellers are able to sell all over the world, besides maybe 3 countries or so. That's now opened up to the fact that people are getting smarter. They're trying to speak to these different marketplaces, not just the United States anymore. Although being one of the more spend happy countries that we are, we're not the only. Think about population, right? Let's just talk about numbers in general and take a step back. I love Jeopardy and I love knowing trivia facts about this. In terms of GDP, the United States is number one in terms of what we buy and sell, and we're one of the greater economies around the world. Now, obviously, we're not in terms of people that pales in comparison to some of these other countries. Obviously, like China, we have billions of people. You have India with billions of people, and just certain quadrants of the world. APAC, which is Asia Pacific area, even alone just in those nations, if you pack them all together, like Singapore, New Zealand, those areas, you're talking about a GDP of like number 4 in the world. So that in itself is opened up not just my eyes, but a lot of big brands and international companies that say, listen, Amazon or the United States is a great market, but let's talk about in terms of people. Where can we get our goods in the hands of people and not just where money's being spent? So that's what you have to look at first and foremost. Outside of Amazon, which is probably the number 1 marketplace in the world for lots of countries, in Europe, for example, let's look at they're the number 10 in terms of popularity because each country has its own marketplace that's been around much longer than Amazon. Amazon's only been really popular, I would say, in the last 15 years or so in international audiences. I'm gonna say less than that, maybe 10 years. So before then,
notice he said international. So just so
right,
everybody knows.
International. So this is like Amazon putting in their fulfillment warehouses and things like that, and actually having like DE for Germany, or .UK obviously for Britain. Those are the marketplaces that I'm talking about. So the adoption has only been a decade or so. We're lucky because everything gets tested in the US market, but internationally people don't get the same perks, even in terms of advertising. It's just not adopted yet, but that takes time as people localize. More brands are starting to push their goods online into Amazon's fulfillment centers, and just people are starting to shop more on Amazon. Now, like as I mentioned before, each country has their own marketplace. Like we said, CD discount, really big in France. A lot of people have adopted that early, and it's by far and away the #1 marketplace in France. So again, when you start to piece and look at these different countries, which have millions upon millions of people, there's other marketplaces that can be available for you as a seller. A lot of people just balk at the idea of, oh, how do I get my goods over to France, or how do I translate, or how do I localize, or how do I even pay taxes in those countries? So I think a lot of people just look at it, think it's a good idea, and then they realize the work that has to be done, and then they instantly back up. Now, that's where I think you're going to see a lot of people who want to really overcome, try to figure out how to, either with partners like GETIDA, or we talked about YLT and Yana earlier, just work with different service providers in order to figure out how my goods can apply to those localized entities, and really to start to piece together these chunks of people and where you can find opportunity to sell. So to answer your question, Rakuten is the #1 option in Japan, which has, again, such a vast majority. I mean, Amazon's definitely coming up, but Rakuten is still by far and away the #1 shopping marketplace for Japanese buyers and sellers. You're talking about Central and South America, which again, billions of people in Brazil. You're talking about Central America. You're talking about Mercado Libre, which a lot of people are trying to figure out, how do I get my goods in the hands of South America and Central America quicker and more effectively. Those are opportunities where I see that sellers can really grow their business exponentially. And you're already seeing that playbook being implemented by aggregators in the space for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we do have just a little bit of time left on the show. And I want to ask Ryan a couple more questions, actually. So Ryan, I know there's probably a few more tips that we probably missed. Maybe just share a few more tips on that. And then I've got one more question for you before we kind of wrap everything up.
Yeah. So tips in terms of, you're talking about saving money.
Yeah, saving money, or if you're dealing with suppliers internationally, or in Europe or even Canada. I mean, a lot of U.S. sellers, usually the first place they kind of venture out to is Canada when they're starting to sell internationally. Even though technically, Canada's connected, it is still a separate country for the U.S. So tell us a little more. Maybe focus a little bit on Canada. Like, on average, what kind of like savings are you seeing for most of the customers when they're collecting their money back from Amazon when selling in Amazon Canada?
Yeah, I'll kind of reel this back and apply it to that aggregator question you asked me about, like, why are they interested in condensing and growing internationally? A lot of the efficiencies that sellers just don't know that are available are in the logistics and supply chain, which again, I'm not the expert in that. There will be other guests on this show that will be lending their expertise on that a little bit more. But what our expertise is where you can actually financially save on fees. So the example that I want to share with in terms of like international sellers, if I'm selling $1 million a month in Canada, for example, this call a round number, $1 million, not out of the ordinary number, $1 million a month, and I'm paying traditional fees on conversions. I'm going to get that money back to the United States, and I'm in the United States, so that money gets converted back over to me. Let's just say you save 1% on that conversion fee. That's $10,000 a month. Again, this is my math, make sure it's correct. That's, if I save 1% on $1 million, that's $10,000.
Yep.
And if you apply that to 12 months, that's $120,000, right?
Yep.
So you're saving
Absolutely.
a year, just triple or, six figures just on saving 1% on money that's already yours back to your own pocket. So that's not fictitious. That's money that you're not going to spend for the sake of selling in Canada. Now, as an aggregator, when you're talking about multiplying, taking that multiplier, that money that you're saving, it's going to go back to your bottom line because they know that they can actually save those same funds with solutions like PingPong, and they're going to simplify your solutions in other ways. That's why they're so good at what they do, and logistics and other things like that. But just alone, if you're talking about exiting a 3-time multiple and that money is actionable and it can go to your bottom line that you saved over the course of this next year, and you save $120,000 and you exit at a 3-time multiple, you just pocketed essentially $360,000 just by saving in fees. So that would be a actionable way of, it's free to sign up, and why wouldn't you save more money, or why wouldn't you get more money back that's already yours, like with GETIDA? Those are the things that you should start asking yourself. If you're not doing that today, you should certainly be signing up for and implementing these services right now.
Yeah. No,
after the show, you go sign up, right?
And a 3-time multiple, I think that's being conservative, Ryan, don't you?
Right.
I mean, we're hearing.
I give a very conservative.
I think it is. I think it'd be safe. It's safe to say like a 3 to 6 time multiple would be a good range.
I would rather under promise but over deliver. So that's what I'm gonna say. Like, think about what would you do with an extra $360,000 in your pocket after you put it in your sweat equity? Again, at the end of the day, this is just, we're talking about dollars and cents. Everyone gets in this business because of, you want to grow a brand or you want to sell it, and now you have this asset available. It's worth something to companies like Elevate Brands, like a Thrasio, like Fortunate, or like Foundry. All those different companies that are emerging quite substantially, and they're raising these funds. They want to apply that formula and that hard work that you did and take it to a next level. But they're going to pay you for it, so they're not going to. They obviously want to save you money, but if your numbers don't lie, they have to apply by that. But if you aren't taking advantage of things like GETIDA or things like PingPong, you're going to short yourself money in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have the documented on our site that basically says, on average, GETIDA saves you. Now I'm talking like you. No, it gets you back in reimbursements about 1 to 3% of your annual income, approximately. So take that savings along with PingPong savings and start adding that up into a 3x multiplier, being conservative, like Ryan and I are doing. That's a lot of money. That goes in your pocket. I mean, heck, and like we said, Ryan and I both said, this is your money. This isn't like you're making this money or owed. I mean, you're owed this money. I mean,
if you're watching this for the first time and I'm a seller and I'm like, I'm going to get into the Amazon game, I'm going to tell you right now, margins are super thin when you're talking about fees. You're talking about paying your supplier manufacturer, and then you start paying yourself or other employees. And then on top of that, any sort of shipping costs, if you're fulfilling, or any of these other little places that are going to take a couple of cents here, a couple dollars here, all of a sudden you take that margin and you start to shrink it really quickly. If I'm taking more of what I just took out, putting it back in, you're going to be a happy camper. So I can buy more goods. I can invest in more PPC or DSP solutions. I can start to see my business scale out quicker than I would have if I didn't use these solutions. So it's almost boggling. These solutions are all free. Again, we make money on transactions. You make it on how much you're recovering. We only exist in the fact, like, if you're making more money, this is a growth partnership. And that's how PingPong's always seen ourselves, is we're here to grow with you and not grow because of you. Does that make sense? Like, there's a different distinguishing
100%. No, you're 100% right. Yeah. GETIDA, there's no monthly fee. Like, if in the first month we get you back, $100 or $1,000, yeah, there's a small fee on that, but there's no monthly going forward. Like, if the next month we get you back $0, we charge you. There is no fee. It's $0. It's only based on getting you money back. So we're the same way. We grow with you. We help you grow. We want to find your money for you. So,
guys, if you're not making money, then I'm not making money. Like, that's exactly. Like, I want to see entrepreneurs grow and just like blow these expectations out of the water. And especially internationally, I want you to build your brand to whatever you envision it. I want that to be achievable with the help of funds, funding, and all that other, we're not even talking about funding. We're talking about like just saving actual dollars and cents that are yours anyways.
build up your business, learn from it, get on Ryan and I's podcast and share it with others on tips and things you found that will help others. That's what we want to see, right, Ryan?
100%.
Yeah. So before we wrap up here, real quick, Ryan, share with us one thing that most people probably don't know about you.
Oh man.
Ooh, I stumped him.
All right.
No,
that's if I want to share it. So I've been on a lot of these shows before, but before
COVID keep it PG here.
Well, yeah, no, that's okay. So there's a couple things. One, my wife and I were foster parents for a long time, so that would be personal. But for fun, my hobbies were like being in musicals and plays, and I was doing comedy improv before COVID hit. So that I've done improv shows, and that pushed me to have active listening and being more open-minded and going with the flow of, I'm applying this to business. As things get thrown my way and they're like they're not expected, they've allowed me to sit, think, and apply quickly, like the speedboat example a lot of people use in this industry. As enterprises, think of them as the Titanic. They can only go so fast and change direction very slowly. But us in the entrepreneur space and the service provider space, you can ebb and flow if you need to change quickly. Same model in improv. You would have to just change your mindset. You can't just blow your way through it and just think that this is going to happen. If it's not reality, it's not reality, and you have to adjust with that.
Yeah, very cool one. That was good. I knew some of that, and that was cool. And so real quick, everybody, if you are watching on any of the channels, I do have PingPong's URL at the bottom. Ryan, for those listening, why don't you tell them how to get to PingPong payments and also any contact information you want to share so they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, great question. So if you email me, again, it's ryan.cramer, ryan.cramer at pingpongx.us. And you have a question and you just, in the subject line, just say, hey, Sellernomics podcast. Just let me know that you saw us here. Of course, you can just mention if you have questions about saving funds, what does it cost? Again, we didn't even go over what PingPong's cost model is. You're saving anywhere from 4 to 5%, but if you're doing that and you just want to sign up today, I can send you over a link to get signed up today. Your first month of using us and your in terms of the fees that we would normally charge, those would be $0. So make sure you reach out to me and just mention you saw us on here. And then we can get you signed up. It's free to sign up. There's no fees for every month that you use PingPong. There's only fees that we make money off of is when you convert funds from one currency to another. And at the end of the day, you can't beat that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are watching the video, look down in the description. Any one of the videos you're on, I definitely have a link in there to reach out to PingPong payments. And also, if you do get a hold of Ryan or contact him, I have the email on the screen. It's ryan.cramer at pingpongx.us. That's his email address. And be sure to mention the Sellernomics podcast or Rob Stanley's podcast or Rob, whatever. One of those things, Ryan will know. He definitely, him and I talk all the time. And Ryan, wow, what a pleasure to have you on again for the first time on my new channel, the Sellernomics podcast. And stay tuned, everyone, because we will have lots of great guests coming on. Ryan will loop back around later this year in a very interesting way. So stay tuned for that. We will have Ryan back on for something really super cool that we will be doing. And yeah, Ryan, thank you so much for being on the Sellernomics podcast and, of course, helping me kick off the very first one. It's always a pleasure having you on.
To many more episodes, Rob.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Ryan. Take care of yourself.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sellernomics podcast. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. Be sure to join us again next week for more great tips on how to grow your business. And thanks again for listening.